Hello, and welcome to Teaching Music with Susan, a channel where I talk about tips and tricks for the elementary music classroom. Here we go. So for today's video, I'm going to talk to you about rules, consequences, and rewards. Every teacher has to have this. It's called a discipline plan. And I have 4 rules in my classroom. 3 of them will probably sound very familiar to you. They're a lot like classroom rules that academic teachers have. And one of them is just really specific to the music room. Okay, here are my 4 rules. Number 1. I will listen when the teacher is speaking. Number 2, I will keep my instrument quiet until we are ready to play. Number 3, I will keep my hands and feet to myself. And number 4, I will respect my classmates and the teacher. So those are the rules, and here are the consequences. Number 1, I will lose my smiley face. Number 2, I will lose my instrument. Number 3, I will take a time out. Number 4, the teacher will call my house. And number 5, I will complete a written assignment. So I'm going to explain those consequences to you more fully, and I'm also going to explain the reward system. So let's go back and look at those rules. 3 of them are school-wide. Listen when the teacher's speaking. Keep your hands and feet to yourself. And the last one, which is respecting the teacher and your classmates. I think pretty much every school has those or some form of that. The one that is specific to music, that I will keep my instrument quiet until we are ready to play, is extremely important. In a video that I did before this, I talked about classroom setup, and I keep my classroom instruments underneath each student's chairs in a little bin. So it's really important to have a rule that lets these students know that yes, the instrument's there. Yes, we're going to get to play it today, but you don't mess with it until it is time to play. So that is why that rule is up there, is I will keep my instrument quiet until we're ready to play. So let's talk about those consequences. The first consequence was I will lose my smiley face. So pre-pandemic, for probably the past 15 years or so, I have had this as part of my reward system. Smiley faces, they can come in various colors, a couple different makers of them. And I get them laminated and I cut them out and I put them on top of the chair when they come in. And they're supposed to put them in their bin when they sit down. And then if they break a rule, I will walk over to them and I will just put my hand out, or I may whisper quietly, hand me your smiley face. And they'll give me their smiley face, and that's consequence number 1. And so it's the equivalent of a warning, okay? Consequence number 2 is I will lose my instrument. The student will only lose their instrument if they broke rule number 2, which is I will keep my instrument quiet until we're ready to play. I'm not going to take their instrument away if they were talking or putting their hands on somebody. That's not fair if they weren't doing anything to their instrument. Consequence number 3 is I will take a time out. So they've already had that warning where they've lost their smiley face, and now they're breaking the same rule again or breaking another rule. So now it's time to remove them from the situation a little bit and put them in just a different location in the room and let them have just a little chill time to get back into music, okay? Consequence number 4 is the teacher will call my house. So they've already had the warning, they've even had time out, and now it's like the 3rd time that they're breaking the same rule or another rule, and now I'm going to have to call their house at the end of the school day. Consequence number 5 is I will complete a written assignment. So if the student has gone through the other consequences and they come back to my classroom the next classroom time after I've already talked to their parents and they're still working the system and losing their smiley face and going to timeout, and I call their parents again, then eventually what's going to happen is by that 3rd music class, I'm going to give them a written assignment that they have to do It could be something as simple as copying definitions out of a book. It could be a theory worksheet. It just depends on the grade level, what they're going to be doing. The key to not having to do the consequences is to keep your students engaged. If you learn nothing else from any of my videos, the faster you can move in elementary music, the more things you have going on, whether it's we're singing and we're moving, we're playing and we hear the music, whether we're doing choreography, whether we're having to talk about form with the choreography at the same time, the more things that you can have going on in a given activity, the more your students will be engaged and the smaller the chances that you're going to have to do any of these consequences because they're not going to have time for behavior issues. So let's talk about the rewards. So each student has one of these at their chair, and at the end of class time, if they didn't lose it, so that means they followed all the rules, I will count up all of the smiley faces. If the entire class keeps their smiley faces, then I will give the class 5 extra points. If I catch the class doing something really good along the way, I will give them more points on top of that. And then I have an incentive chart that I fill out, that I hang on a wall in my classroom that I'll fill out with marker with their teacher's name on it so that they can see how many points they have and they can see all the points for everybody in the whole school. Then when the class gets to 200 points, they get a prize. The prize the students would get at 200 points was a tangible prize. For example, a pencil or an eraser or sticker. I have done this particular discipline system for about 15 years. That is until we went into lockdown and until we were in virtual and hybrid. So when we were all virtual, I created this in Google Slides. The idea being that every class time, if I saw that there was student participation and we got through the lesson, they all got the 25 points each class time. The prizes were no longer tangible. So I chose to give a prize every 100 points instead of every 200 points, is what I had been doing in the class. Now, part of the reasons I did 200 points in the class was I was buying the prizes myself and I wanted it to line up to about 1 prize per 9-week period. In addition to that, I was counting every student as a point and extra points on top of that and so on and so forth. So one class might have 27 points for the day, another class might have 32 or 35. It just depended on how big the class was. With this system, it was just easier to have every class get 25 points for each time that they showed up and got through the lesson and paid attention. So let's talk about what type of rewards that I gave in virtual and hybrid. Instead of doing the tangible, like the pencils and erasers, I chose non-tangible things. So when we were all virtual, the rewards looked like this. Bring a stuffed animal to music class. Wear a silly hat, wear sunglasses, wear sports gear, extra dance. So we could do an extra dance. It just didn't make sense to say to the roomies, bring a stuffed animal next time to music class because they weren't in the building every day. So the fact that they were probably not going to remember on music day to bring that stuffed animal was pretty high. So that is when my reward system turned into this. Extra body percussion, extra singing song, extra dance song, and extra storybook. So the students were still getting an opportunity to get a reward, but it was no longer tangible or something that they had to provide for themselves from home. Now, I do want to tell you a couple things about when you need to tell your students all this. First, you need to have your rules and consequences posted. And the very first music class that they come to you, you need to tell them those rules and consequences and reward system. And always do it in that order. Here are the rules, here are the consequences if you break the rules, and then here's the good news, which is the rewards that you can get if you follow the rules. Before this past school year, I would deliver that information in person, live in every single class. And by the end of the first week of school, I was so tired of saying rules, and it definitely contributed to me over talking too much and my voice would start to go. As a result of that, I decided that this year I'm actually going to make a video of that for my students. So one more thing before I close this video out. Once you've gotten those rules and consequences out there so the students have seen it, they know what's going on, at some point in that first class, if it's not right when they sit down, you need to mark down who is sitting in which chair. So if you went ahead and put numbers on your chairs, or maybe you put shapes on your chairs, however you want to do it, it's a really good idea to take a moment on that very first class to say, okay, so-and-so, what chair number are you sitting in? So you just take your roster and you read the child's name out and say, tell me your chair number nice and loud when I call your name, and you put a number next to it on the roster. And then you can take the time later to make a seating chart so that you could just pull that seating chart up in front of you and look at it when the students are in front of you and go, okay, my friend in chair 3 isn't here. Oh, that is so-and-so. And then you mark them absent so you know that they weren't there that day. All right, that's all I have for today. I hope you learned something about rules, consequences, and rewards for the music room, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.